Well, it's a sunny day here in Philadelphia, but wait for it. Yes, it's always sunny in Philadelphia. So we're very excited here with the new line of products. I'm going to take you through the AutoCAD 2018 product and a couple of other little side notes on products built on top of that. And Dave's correct. Yeah, I remember when I thought the Parallel Edge was about as good as it was going to get. And yes, it's gotten much better. So let's continue. 35 years, AutoCAD's been around. I actually started with the product right about here in 1987. And yeah, it was in DOS, and you used to edit things in something called Edlin. And now we're up to 2017 and a much, much more sophisticated product. On the other hand, a lot of the stuff that you did back in the 80s or 90s or aughts, you can still do in AutoCAD. So while it continues to get better, it still remains familiar. There are some new features that are available through apps, the Autocad Mobile App that's available, as well as plugins that you can use from the App Store. In this particular release of AutoCAD, you get, in addition to AutoCAD itself, the AutoCAD Mobile App, and of course you get your A360 account, which means that you can access information from anywhere. You can upload your profile information, which you've been able to do for several releases, and then download that locally. And we have something called View, which will allow us to publish to our 360 account drawings, and then we can share them and view them really across any platform. So it can be Windows, Mac, iOS, or Android. 2018, there is some simplification to licensing, access, updates, and versions. The subscription account, I think Dave may talk more about that in a minute when I get to a different slide. Obviously, you personalize AutoCAD and connect from anywhere on any platform. So move on to the next one. So software management, controlling costs and predicting spending through subscription plans. You have the ability with subscription to sign on for a month. I think it's a quarter, might be more than that, or multiple years. For those of you that are wondering about the subscription basis, not only can you add additional licenses for a short period of time as work changes, but now with subscription, your licensing is to you and not to a particular machine. So you can really use any machine anywhere that has AutoCAD on it, and when you log in, you have access to your AutoCAD license. Okay, so included with subscription is, again, the AutoCAD mobile app, and I can't really show it during a webinar, but you have the ability to view your drawings, again, really anywhere on any platform that you want. So that's just free with the software. The Autodesk app, for those of you that haven't installed it or are wondering what that little folded A that kind of looks like this guy right here, right? So this folded, I call it the folded A. It's the new Autodesk brand image, but that will be down in your tray, again, in the sort of same area where the Autodesk is right now. The Autodesk Desktop App basically tracks the software that you have on your machine and whether Autodesk has released any updates. So I actually have mine open here, and here is the Autodesk Desktop App. The first button is basically telling me products that are available to me, and the second one is telling me about updates that are available. So for the different products I have installed, there are a whole bunch of individual items that I could use for updating. You can also go to the individual product itself and see if there's anything in particular that's available for that. If you're a system administrator, you can also turn this off so that people don't randomly update their software, because it is a good idea for everyone to be working on the same and the latest release of the software. So let me go ahead and close that. Again, you'll get updates and you'll be notified There will be tutorials that are available, and again, there are tips and content libraries. So those are around. So let's take a look at some of the new features in this release of the software. Now, AutoCAD way back in the day would kind of save up all of the goodies for an annual release. And when that annual release came out, you got all this spectacular new stuff. AutoCAD at 35 years is a mature product. And so there are smaller and smaller changes we're going to see every year in the product. There are some that get released on the annual basis, but by being on subscription and keeping an eye out on the desktop app, AutoCAD and the Autodesk programmers are constantly developing incremental improvements to the software. And if some of you have been on the beta test, as I have been, you will get notices every once in a while that there's this new feature for the software they'd like you to test, and then they will release it with one of the product updates. So when you get an update, not only do you get fixes that might be from code issues, but they'll also throw in maybe a new feature. And when that new feature appears, it'll also be marked in the AutoCAD product. You'll be able to see that. So there have been enhancements to the PDF import tool. If you haven't updated any of the 2017 product, the 2018 product has some new enhancements built in for recognizing and converting Shx font. We'll talk about that in a minute if you haven't worked with the PDF files. External references used to, by default, be set up for absolute pathing, and now they're set up for relative pathing. And there are some ways to fix broken paths. I'm going to try to demonstrate that today, although I occasionally find the wrong folder, so just bear with me as I search for that particular folder. And I'm going to show you the off-screen selection when you start windowing to select objects. If you move the screen, what was happening in older releases is anything that was off-screen would no longer be selected. So it kind of made it frustrating to select objects that were across a fairly large or complex file. Text to mText has now migrated from the Express tools to the regular menu. I sort of say it goes from the kids table to the adult table. And what that means is that if you have AutoCAD LT, you'll now be getting that particular feature. In addition to converting text to mText, it'll take multiple pieces of mText and convert them to a single piece of mText. We got a whole bunch of calls last year when people got these new 4K high-resolution monitors. I have no idea why they were buying them when using AutoCAD, but I guess there was a good deal when you were purchasing new equipment. And of course, the Autodesk products looked like dreck on those monitors because they weren't really designed for that. And so you were getting very weird small menus and text and ribbons. And basically we had to tell everyone to kind of tone it down back to the older, lower resolution monitors. That's all been fixed in this release, and all of the Autodesk products, including AutoCAD, now display correctly on your high resolution monitors. Some user interface improvements, I'll show you some of those. Again, minor stuff, but for some people it makes a difference, and then we'll talk about how we share our views from a file up on the web. So let me get started with this, having to do with file dialog boxes. Let me come back into AutoCAD here. And when we bring up a dialog box, let's say I choose the open dialog box, a couple of things that have been improved. This one, it may not show up quite as dramatically, but you can expand all of the dialog boxes now. And so before, when you had these kinds of things and you had to do, shifting back and forth to see things, the boxes now will resize themselves, or you can resize them rather. And I think if you've resized them, no, it doesn't. The resizing doesn't change, but sorting does. So at the moment, in this particular file, it's sorting, let's say, alphabetically. But maybe you would like to sort by date modified, or file size. And if you were to cancel out of there and come back in, I believe it holds on to that particular sorting method, right? So it's still sorting by file size. So it doesn't seem to be respecting the size of the box. Maybe it would if I actually opened a drawing rather than canceling out of it. But it does respect your last sorting method. So minor, but something that people might have been having issues with is why does every time it keep changing back? Another very minor thing, I think, but for some people, again, it could be a big deal, is adding the layer drop-down list automatically to the quick access toolbar. Of course, that was one of the first things I always did, right-click and click on Add to the quick access toolbar, but now that's built in. So again, if you're on any particular tab other than the Home tab, you'll have your layer list drop-down built in. And again, you can turn that on and off, but if you weren't really thinking about doing that, it's really nice to have that available at the top of the screen. Okay. So what do we got next here? Off-screen selection. So let me show you how that works. And by the way, for those of you that aren't quite aware of this little tool down here, the ability to switch into the sort of the model space environment of the particular viewport on a layout tab without actually leaving the layout tab over here. If I double click inside this viewport, that viewport's now active. If I click on that little button, it's kind of nice because what that will do is, actually this little button here, what that will do is that will take me into basically model space, so I'm basically free of the layout that I was in, but it maintains all of the layer structure and scale structure of that particular viewport on that particular layout tab. And of course, you can move around freely in here, go anywhere you want. And just like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, clicking the ruby slippers, if you click on that little icon, takes you right back to, well, maybe not Kansas, but at least to your layout tab that you were in. So again, let me go back in here and click on this. Okay, so let me show you the selection set option. If I start to build a selection window over here, and then I pan the screen, let's say down to here, anything that wasn't showing on the screen prior to this particular release would not be selected. In this particular release, it gets selected. So no matter where you start and where you end, anything within that particular boundary is selected. And I can show you that by maybe using the copy command and picking a spot, and you'll see all of that stuff got selected. So that's a nice new feature. Again, it's not going to change the world, but it may certainly help you on a daily basis with what you're doing with your work. So that's the new ability to zoom and maintain your selection set. Okay, let me come back over to this. So PDF, let me take you through the process. If those of you who didn't jump to 2017, that was the main reason for going there. And one of the nice things about 2017 is you got the PDF import, but you were on the same platform as 13, 14, 15, and 16. With 2018, we do move to a new database platform. So 2018 is not, you can't open a 2018 file. In previous releases, of course, you can save down. So there's no issue with saving down, just like you always have been able to, but it is a new platform. So let me go ahead and open up the Sheet Set Manager. Let me close this file. And I'm going to bring up the PDF enhancement, or not, bring up the PDF enhancement file, which is actually just a blank file here. So I'm going to come over and I'll drop down into model space, and I'll come up to the Insert tab at the top on the ribbon, and I'll choose the PDF import tool. And we'll go ahead and choose this particular file that we have in our data set here. And you'll get a box that'll show you all of the different layout tabs that are available for importing. Now, keep in mind when you import a PDF, if it was plotted at 1:1, you aren't getting the geometry at its original scale. You're getting the geometry at the plot scale. I have to, sorry about the little messages, I have to keep my Outlook open to get us to my shared view in a little bit. But you can always scale these, so there's nothing that's going to hurt you with coming in at 1:1 initially and then coming in and adjusting it. There are a variety of settings in here. I'm going to just use all of the defaults for now. I'm going to pick the second layout tab because it's got some text in there that I can use. And when it finishes importing, there we go. So there's our file. Now, you're going to see that we get these different objects in here. Let me bring up the properties palette. And I'll pull this over here so we can see what's going on. So we get a polyline there in that particular case. Here I get another polyline. Here, notice I'm just getting lines or polylines. I'm not actually getting text. Here, though, I'm getting mtext. Here I'm getting mtext. So what's going on that's different with the text? Well, what's happening is that anything that's a true type font is going to be recognized, but because PDF doesn't actually support the old Autocad Shx fonts, it doesn't really know what to do with them. And so it doesn't support them as fonts, it supports them as essentially vector information. So what are we going to do with all of this? It's really non-editable at this point. So we have a feature up here at the top, which is called Recognize Shx Text, so right up here. And if I go ahead and select that, sometimes my mouse, let me go ahead and select my objects. I'll window all of these, for example. I also have a option. I'll just use the drop-down arrow and go to Settings. And in the Settings dialog box, you can tell it to look for a particular word. So you'll notice I have the word jacuzzi in that text, and I can type into this box here, jacuzzi. You can also choose which SHX fonts to search for, and you can add additional ones or remove them from your folder where you keep them. You also have the ability to make some settings up here, and you can set the recognition threshold. I'm having trouble with English today. And you also have a check mark here, which is, I think, the best one. Use the best matching font. So I'm just going to tell it to just figure out what font works best. Go ahead and let's pick OK, and we'll cross our fingers, right-click. And when it finishes, we should get a box. And it says that there were 8 groups of selected geometry converted to text. So we'll pick Close. And now we have the text as actual text, right? This is actually editable as text. But now we have these all as individual pieces of text. So let's see what's next on the agenda. I'm going to guess that it's going to be converting text to mtext. So what we can do is we can take those individual pieces of text now and convert them into a single piece of mtext. And again, you can do this in LT as well. You used to have to go to Express Tools to do that, but now you don't have to do that anymore. On the Insert tab, you'll notice that you now have the Combine Text button here in this import panel. And so if I choose the Combine Text tool, it will ask me to select my objects. Go ahead and select those. Now, it's going to turn it into a single piece of mtext, so all of the line spacing will be lost initially, but again, you can add that back in. So now I have a single piece of mtext. With the intelligence in AutoCAD text, if I press Enter, you'll see that it updates the numbering. I can backspace one letter or one space and just eliminate that number. And again, you can see that AutoCAD Text from previous releases will go ahead and renumber these. So again, you can make adjustments to those particular settings. So again, you have that in AutoCAD as well as in the AutoCAD LT product. Okay, so let's see where we go next here. So these are a couple of things from previous releases that I wanted to show you, the Sysphere monitor as well as the LT gap selection tool. The Sysphere monitor has been updated a bit, excuse me, so that it will now appear in the application status bar at the bottom of the screen if a system variable changes. Now, I would strongly suggest you turn on balloon notifications when that occurs, because sometimes you won't pick up the fact that that little icon showed up. And I'll show you how that works in a second. And also the LT gap selection system variable that's going to allow you to pick these dashed or dotted lines or snap to them even when there is nothing there. Again, that was added in the previous release, but might have been something that you missed. So let me just show you that. I'm going to come in to the system variable monitor. I'll just start typing sys, and there it is. There's sysvar monitor. And inside this dialog box, you have the ability to make changes to things, and you also have the ability to notify me when these variables change. Oh, and I changed the pick add variable. I'm not sure why I didn't get a notice, but I'll tell it to reset them. And that comes in. Let's say you have a variable here called save time. You can add really any variable that's in AutoCAD to that list. So if you're kind of curious, like, hey, suddenly I don't have my file, when I go to open a file, I don't have my file dialog box anymore. What happened? Well, the file DIA variable may have switched from 1 to 0. Or, hey, when you go to mirror text, it's actually mirroring versus not mirroring, and somehow that got set to 1. So there are different routines you may be running that turn these things on and off. One of the issues that several of our clients have had over time is with save time. That gets turned off, you don't get auto saving, so that can be a problem. So let me show you what will occur when something like that changes. So here's save time. I'm going to set that to 0. And you'll notice what happened. Down here at the bottom, I got this automatic notice that that system variable had changed. If I close the box, you'll see, excuse me, that the sysvar monitor icon is still there. Again, it will only be there when there was a change and you didn't update it. So I'll click on that, and it says, hey, someone changed save time to 0. Your preferred setting is 10. I'm going to say cool. I'll just pick reset all and pick OK, and you'll see that that little icon in the bottom right now goes away. The balloon notification, I think, is important so that you'll actually see when something changes. So that's nice. Let me come over here and just show you in the say kitchen area, we have a series of different kinds of, do we have a series of different kinds of lines? Yeah, so there's some dashed lines, here's some dashed lines, there's some dotted lines in here. I'm not sure why I'm not seeing them, but they're there somewhere. And, oh, here they are. So as I start, let's say, the line tool, if I came over to home and I start the line tool, notice that if I pick a spot, notice as I come onto these dashed lines here, if I start to draw from a particular spot, let me work with the dashed line, it'll be a little bit easier to see. You can see I can snap to, as I come down, oh, let me see if my LT gap selection is on. LT gap selection set to 1, should be there. It should be taking me, let me go back to, yeah, it should be selecting that. It worked fine during demos. I'm not quite sure why it's not working right now, but you should be able to select to that particular gap. I'm failing terribly here at this point, but trust me, it normally will work just fine. And there was funny, if you saw one of the Seth Meyers' recent sketches, a closer look, he said, anyone that tells you that has to tell you to trust me, you definitely are not going to get trusted, such as the person who says, oh, definitely I will be picking you up for dinner, means that you're going to be eating at Cinnabon is what it is. So I thought that was pretty funny. But trust me on that one, it actually does work. Okay, so external file references. Let me show you how that works. At least I'm going to attempt to show you how that one works. So let's go ahead and close this guy down. And let me bring up the external references file. Okay, so when this comes up, all of a sudden, boy, we got a big jump here with all of these, with the external reference palette showing up. And of course, I got a system variable change. Let me see what's going on there. Mirror text. Let me go ahead and just reset that and pick OK to that. So now we have a bunch of links that are not found. And we have a couple of orphaned items here. So in the past, with orphaned items, it means that they aren't set up properly in one of these files that are currently either not found or unloaded. And in the past, you really had no idea what files those were in. But if I come over to the top right and click on the tree view, we can now see that mapbase is the file that contains the two orphaned files. So I'll go back to the list view. And we have a whole bunch of files here that are hard-coded. Their paths are hard-coded. And so what we want to do is see if I can find one. Here's one called map information, and that was hard-coded into a folder called, I think, datasets map xrefs, right? So I'm going to go ahead and change. You also see that they're all set as attached, and they're also hard-coded here. So if I right-click on this and come down, I now have change path type. I believe in the previous release, in one of the interim updates, the option that was currently selected was not grayed out. So you really didn't have an idea of which one of these you should click on. So here, clearly, absolute is grayed out because that's what's being used. So I'll go ahead and choose make relative. And actually, what I should have done is change path type. Yep, make relative. I should get a new path dialog box. I'm not sure why I'm not getting that. Okay, let's go ahead and see if I can change path type. That's not working for me. How about I'm going to select a new path for that. And that one is called map information. Let me come back to up to here, and there's my map information in there. Not seeing it in there. Let's come over to here. There's my map information folder. So I'll go ahead and pick open to that. And what I do is I get this dialog box here that says, hey, I found some other files that are not found in that folder. Do you want to remap them? And I'll go ahead and say yes. And it went ahead and suddenly added all of those particular paths to those particular items. I also have one here called map services not found, and that one is in, let's say, map xrefs. Let's see if I can come down to find and replace. And so it's going into dataset map xrefs. And what I want to do is come into here and come to map xrefs. I think that's the one I want, but I'm not 100% sure. Let's try that. 0, well, I didn't get the right folder for that. But if you get the right folder for that, it will go ahead and map those. I'll try it one more time. Let me see if I can just map xrefs. So try it one more time. I'll come back down to find and replace. Let me come down into here, and I want to find map xrefs, map files, services. It's not there. Well, I'm not 100% sure where it is, but if you get the right folder and go ahead and choose open for that, again, it will repath, and not only repath the file that you selected, but all the other files. It obviously won't work if it can't find the particular file, okay? Okay, so that is the file remapping features. And again, if you know where the things are, it will go ahead and adjust those for you. So let me go ahead and close that. And we'll come on to the next one. Again, I can't really demonstrate this particular feature because I don't have a high-resolution monitor. But if you watch some of the videos that are available online, different people have demonstrated this on their high-resolution monitors, and you're going to see everything will be just fine with the AutoCAD dialog boxes, palettes, and the ribbon at the top of the screen. Sharing your design. So you now have the ability to take your file and publish it up to the web into your A360 account. I'm going to do a Julia Child on this one, and I'll show you where it is, and then I've already posted one that I'm going to use for display and demonstration purposes. So let me go ahead and close this file and see if I can bring up the one that's for design view enhancements. Okay, so here's a file. We've got different floor plans in there, and you might decide that there's one of these that you'd like to publish up to the one of these views you'd like to publish, or you want to publish all of the views. In the A360 tab at the top of the screen, over on the left-hand side, we'll have the Share Design view. And if I go ahead and click on that, you'll have a couple of different options here. One is to publish and display in my browser now, which means you're going to wait for it. The other is you can publish and notify me when it's complete. So the reason I keep getting these messages, and we'll close Outlook when I finish with this one, is that I have an Outlook notification that I'm going to bring up. And once it finishes publishing, you'll get this from Autodesk. It'll say that, hey, your file is ready to view. You can click on the View Design button, use Chrome, Firefox, or another browser that supports WebGL and 3D graphics. And you also have a link to the file that you can share. But I'll show you where you can do that inside Design View. So I'll go ahead and click on Design View, and I'll go ahead and maximize Chrome, and it'll take me to the website. If I'm signed in already, then it will simply bring up the view. If I'm not signed in, it will ask you to please sign in. Looks like it's saying, please sign in to manage this design. So I thought I was signed in, but I'll go ahead and click anyway and go ahead and sign in. So good that these things remember your passwords, right? Everyone, it's like, what's my password? I can't remember that password. So I'm now logged in. I'm in the file, and I have the sheet. I'm on the sheet called Combined Text. If there were multiple sheets that I had uploaded, you could choose among those sheets. You can also go between sheets and model space by clicking on that over here on the left-hand side of the screen. And you have different options down here at the bottom. So I have panning, I have zooming, I have camera interactions, I have measure, and with measure I have different items that I can choose in this pop-up box. I can control live review, so we could be viewing this on the screen at the same time. We have layer management that I can work with. And it looks like this guy here is, let me see if I can move him over. There we go. So there's my layer management that we can turn layers on and off if we want. Okay. So let me go ahead and turn my layers all back on. Okay, let's go ahead and just do that. We'll turn them all back on that way. It's too difficult the other way. We have a couple of others here, properties, there's some settings. You can go to full screen. One of the things that is good about this is that, well, again, there are comments you can do for markup. You can do a screenshot, you can print this, but you can choose the Get Link button here in the upper right. And by doing that, you can get this link. My left button doesn't always work on my mouse. So I can get this link, and I can copy that link and send it to anyone right now, for instance, and we can share the design online, or I can have that posted for my client or someone else to take a look at. And again, you get 30 days. So I posted this 7 days ago. I have 23 more to go. Okay, so let me close that, and I'll go ahead and close this, which then will allow me to close Outlook. So let me do that so we don't keep getting those messages popping up. Okay, share my designs. Okay, so that's really about it in the product for what's new in AutoCAD and LT. AutoCAD Architecture and AutoCAD MEP are referred to as being affectionately on maintenance. What that means is that there most likely aren't going to be huge improvements or even new features added to those products, but as long as there's an AutoCAD, there will be an AutoCAD Architecture and an MEP. Some of the new features in both of those, again, have to do with dialog boxes on high-resolution monitors. And if you are working in metric, they have added 400 new multi-view blocks. So for those of you working outside of the US and you need some of the more content, there is some more in there. There's been an improvement to the hatch pattern max line system variable that makes it faster for opening drawings with lots of hatching. And again, whenever there's an update installed for AutoCAD or AutoCAD Architecture or AutoCAD MEP, you'll get this little red dot up on the ribbon that shows you that that was one of the features that was updated. Right out of the what's new in the product listing, there are a whole bunch of things in here. So dialog boxes will now allow you to increase text size, and they'll scale correctly. Exporting and converting schedules to Excel now produces correct results. It should always produce correct results, right? Isolating objects now correctly retains divided spaces if you had done that. You no longer have to update your sheets in Project Navigator if there's changes that have occurred. PDF files didn't import correctly in previous releases has been fixed. And probably one of the big ones here, the export to AutoCAD, if you are trying to dumb down your AEC objects, architecture, engineering, construction, like walls, doors, and windows, or ducts and piping, to just AutoCAD lines, there were some reporting of system crashing when you tried to use the export to AutoCAD command. That's been repaired in this particular release. In terms of what's new, in terms of a comparison chart, for those of you coming from 16 or 17, you can see the PDF import and a whole bunch of other things over here have been added in the 2018 product. For those of you who are in LT versus AutoCAD itself, again, the differences, the main differences are that the 3D features of AutoCAD have been disabled in LT, have also most of the programming interface tools. So there wouldn't be any express tools. Again, there's no application programming interface or API interface that people can write code for. So unfortunately, if you need something done that you can't do in LT, you're kind of stuck. One of the things I suggest to offices, if you're more or less pure LT, we're all 2D, we don't really need AutoCAD or any of its fancy features, and then suddenly we get this call like, oh, you know, I really need to be able to do this with the file, and I'll say, you know, geez, if you had AutoCAD, you'd be able to do it. Sometimes you may find having at least one full-blown copy of AutoCAD available will work very nicely for you. And again, with subscription, if you don't want to fully commit, you can date for 30 days. So you can take out a 30-day subscription, have AutoCAD do the fixes, and when the subscription runs out, you're fine. And the next time you need it, you can go ahead and simply get AutoCAD. So it's a really nice, the subscription really does have some benefits to it. In terms of LT, if you're coming from earlier versions of LT, you'll see there's a long list of things, the PDF import, the desktop app, external reference repair, all of those sorts of things that have been added.